We've found the source of illness and disease, and Dr. Nestler says we're naming it cellular memories. If you're not familiar with the science of that, just delete the word cellular. It's your memories. If you have memories with anger, with low self-worth, with trauma, that childhood trauma you talked about, we used to think, Paul, those just sat in the corner and behaved themselves unless we were actively thinking about them. Today we know that's not true. They're always adding to your stress paradigm, even if you're not thinking about them.
Welcome to the Mind Tracks podcast, where we explore breakthrough ideas on how to live your best life possible. Today, I reconnected with a dear friend and a remarkable healer, Dr. Alex Loyd, the creator of the Healing Codes, a revolutionary method that came to him in a moment of deep desperation and prayer. What followed was a 6-minute process that has since been validated by 32 double-blind studies and used by countless people around the world to relieve stress and restore inner peace. In our conversation, we dive into the origin of the healing codes, the role of stress and cellular memory in disease, and how to shift from expectation to positive expectancy to experience lasting transformation. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, past trauma, or just the overwhelm of daily life, you'll want to hear what Alex has to share. Dr. Alex Loyd, so good to see you, Alex. Thanks for being a part of the Mind Tracks podcast.
Paul, it is such an honor for me to be here. We talked right before we started this that the last time I actually saw you was 16 years ago when I flew to Learning Strategies to spend the weekend with you and Pete and Chin Lee. And it's been way too long, but I'm really excited to be here.
Well, and it's a thrill to come back after all these years and to see the success of your work in the world and the lives of so many people. Your book, The Healing Codes, was it was a stunning revelation to people, and I think it's a beautiful story. I'm a big fan of epiphanies and downloads that we receive that are here to up-level humanity, and our audience might not know what that origin story is. So if you could briefly describe the kind of readiness that you had and what it was that you received at the time.
Yeah, it was really born out of pain, desperation, and love. My wife and I had recently gotten married, and we had this happily ever after with a picket fence and a Labrador Retriever kind of picture. And then it's like the sky fell, and there was a dark cloud covering us all the time, but it wasn't around anyone else. It didn't seem, it was just us. And we found out Hope, my wife, was severely depressed, clinically depressed. So I went back to graduate school. It wasn't a career path to try to become an expert in depression. Years later, I was out and I was in Los Angeles about to come home from a workshop there. And my wife called and was horribly depressed to the point that she couldn't speak. She was sitting on the floor in her nightgown on the hardwood floor with a blanket pulled over her head, weeping and paralyzed, and had been there all night. She was having a really bad depressive episode that she hadn't had in a long time. And so I just prayed for her, tried to encourage her until the stewardess made me put the phone away. And then I literally got on my knees, and this is not first class, this is coach, which means I had to turn sideways to do it. And it hurt. Those bars were on my shins. And I just prayed for hope. And what happened had never happened to me before. It's never happened to me since. I still don't know how to describe it. I didn't hear voices in the air. But what did happen is I saw the blueprint of a healing system in my mind that was like it was written on the wall. And so um, for the next 3 hours to Nashville, I took dictation basically, and my hand was cramping, ran out of paper. Anyway, and that was the healing codes. And I got home, did it on hope. Her depression was gone in 45 minutes. It came back. I don't want to mislead anybody. By the time she done it for 3 weeks, it was gone and it's never come back since. And then on Monday morning, I took it into my private counseling therapy practice, and the same thing started happening there.
It's so gorgeous. And the idea that it came as this vision in its complete form, and it was a matter of you being able to execute it out in the world. Obviously, since those days, you've done a lot of work to understand what exactly it is and how it works. And one of the things that you say, Alex, is that 95, upwards of 95% of all disease, block success, relational pain comes from this kind of physiological stress that the body stores in its hard drive, its hardware. Could you say more about that and how you've come to understand that?
Yeah, actually, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, they have a study on their website. I believe it was from Clemson University, but the CDC is saying this is a valid study, and they found 90% of illness and disease directly related to stress. Um, by the way, a couple of years before that, it was 85%. So it was up 5%, which is very significant. And then Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I'm sure
Mhm.
incredible man, wonderful man, love him, cellular biologist at Stanford formerly, then wrote best-selling books and all that. He says it's at least 95%, probably more. In fact, I was doing a joint program with him, Paul, and someone raised their hand and said, "Okay, what's the other 5%?" And he said, "Oh, he's so enthusiastic." He said, "Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. The other 5% is when someone in your ancestry had a disease gene unmask and become active because of stress. And then it gets passed down to you." So he said, if you want to think of it in another way, it's almost literally 100, but for the sake of, we'll say 95, but it's a lot.
Yeah, that idea that we're uh, the epigenetics, the precursor to our gene expression, is triggered by stress, can create all kinds of havoc in the body. So it behooves us to get at it. So, what is your research and your method? How is this addressing some of these deep reservoirs of internal stress that we're triggering?
Well, when Hope was diagnosed, we went through that depression of hers together for 12 years. That's how long she was clinically depressed, and it was. I mean, there were good times too, but it was kind of a living hell. Sorry to use the language, but that probably describes it best. And it seemed to affect everything. And then when the healing codes came and I started using it on my other clients, it was almost like no matter what their issue was, it would get better or go away. It was affecting almost everything. So I started researching, and what I found was okay, cancer doesn't affect everybody. This doesn't affect everybody. This doesn't affect everybody. But then you get to stress and fight or flight. And it's like, oh, this affects everybody. This is the 95% thing, not the 20% thing, whatever. So to try to validate the healing code some, we didn't have any of the double-blind studies then that we have today. I used heart rate variability, which is the standard
Heart
medical
math.
test for
Mhm.
stress. It's in every hospital. It's been the gold standard in standard medicine for decades. And I thought, okay, this seems to be affecting everything. So let me use the test for the thing that measures everything, the everything thing. And 3 years of testing said that about 86, 87% of the time, within 30 minutes, a person's stress would come down 50% or more. And the existing literature at that time, this was in 2001, is that it's impossible. Nothing will do that. It takes a
Xanax won't do that,
yeah,
right?
no, well, maybe for 3 hours, but not overall, not on,
Mhm.
in time. So that's when I kind of became convinced this is affecting the stress paradigm, and the stress paradigm affects everything else. So
Nice.
that's kind of my 2 cents.
Now, I know it's conjecture perhaps or hypothetical on our part to try to understand what is happening at a cellular level, but do you have a theory about how healing codes have this profound effect?
Yeah, I do. I do. In the early days of the codes, um, what people would tell us the quickest is that, my I can't tell that my cancer's any better. I can't tell that my diabetes is any better, whatever. But what I can tell is I feel better. My my stress is down, my anger is less, my anxiety is less. Um, Whatever. Okay. Well, where does that come from? And a landmark study was done at Southwest South um, in the University in Dallas, Texas, Southwestern University Medical Center in Dallas, Texas, in medical school. And the study was done by Dr. Eric Nestler, who's a medical doctor from Harvard, who was head of the department at Southwestern. And they were trying to find out for the first time what is the bottom line, least common denominator source of illness and disease? Because typically, when you get that and you ask your doctor, he says either we don't know, or it's stress and genetics, but the bottom line is we're not sure. So they were trying to figure that out. And the study concludes it's successful. They're interviewing Dr. Nestler, and this was reprinted in my paper here in Nashville the next day, and it was reprinted all over the world, big news. We've found the source of illness and disease. And Dr. Nestler says we're naming it cellular memories. And if you're not familiar with the science of that, just do a computer thing and delete the word cellular. It's your memories. If you have memories with anger, with low self-worth, with trauma, that childhood trauma you talked about, um, we used to think, Paul, those just sat in the corner and behaved themselves unless we were actively thinking about them. Today we know that's not true. They're always adding to your stress paradigm, even if you're not thinking about them. And the thing we heard the most and have for 24 and a half years now is my stress is down, my anger is down, my anxiety is down, my self-worth is better, my happiness is more, whatever. And probably 20% of the time after the person does a code, they'll say something like, I'm having trouble remembering what was bothering me. And
Don't you love that?
so I believe, and there is some hypothetical and conjecture here, but it is an educated experience guess that we're affecting the cellular memories.
That's so cool. So I know that our listener is probably thinking, when are they going to tell me what the healing code is? So I know that not everybody is going to be watching this on video, but is it possible for you to describe the basic movements?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah. The healing codes is basically the discovery of four healing centers on the body that, to our knowledge, have not been discovered before, at least as a closed system. And they are here. I call this one the eyebrow. I'm really creative with my name. Um, but it's where your eyebrows would grow together if they grew together. The second one is called the Adam's apple. If you're a lady and can't feel your Adam's apple, it's about two-thirds of the way up your throat. The third is called the jaw. It's the back bottom corner of the jawbone, about the size of a $50 or something like that.
Is it actually on the mandibular joint or just in front of it?
It's on the jawbone.
Oh, the
As
bone
far
itself.
back and down as you
Yeah,
can go and still be on the jawbone.
got it.
And then the last one is your temple area. And you activate those with your fingertips. The Discovery Channel did a special a few years ago where they used special video photography to film the energy that's always coming out of the body. Um, And the interesting thing to me when I saw that was the place that comes out the most is the hands, and the place that comes out the very most is the tips of the fingers. Okay, well that was what was in the download. Okay, so you can do it from an inch or two away. That's sort of the spark plug principle. The arc can be more powerful than actually touching, or you can touch. Either way, it works. I would try both and see what resonates with you. And there's specific codes for specific issues, but there's a general code that you can use for anything. And it is, and I'll even tell you what it is. It's both hands bridge, and that's for about 20 seconds. And then go down to both hands Adam's apple for about 20 seconds. And then to both hands jaw for 20 seconds. And then both hands temple for 20 seconds. So that's a minute and 20 seconds. So I would do that 3 or 4 times, typically about 6 minutes. And before you do it, whatever you're working on, let's say you're working on anxiety, which is at epidemic stages today, rate your anxiety before you do it.
Got it. Yeah.
And then after you're done, take a look at that 0 to 10 and see if something's changed.
So we have found that anxiety and uncertainty are so highly linked.
Yeah.
Uncertainty about the future, because most of us are trained to predict and control how things are going to go, right?
Right.
So when we have an uncertain future, our anxiety level spikes because we don't feel, generally, people don't feel that they can be adequately prepared for whatever uncertain future is going to emerge. So
Right.
it makes a lot of sense that as soon as there's any chaos in the environment, a person would project the worst case scenario into the future and then recognize I can't be ready for that. And so the present state is one of a high level of anxiety about that. Are there some cognitive behavioral aspects to your work that can also enhance the use of the codes?
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Dan Gilbert at Harvard, and I've had a little bit of interaction with him. Seems like a wonderful man, psychology professor at Harvard. You see him on TV commercials these days, usually for insurance companies and things. But anyway, he's real big in the psychology field, and he wrote a best-selling book called Stumbling into Happiness about a study they did on the campus of Harvard. And the end result, well, the takeaway, and this is a direct quote from Dr. Gilbert, expectations are a happiness killer. And what they found in their research at Harvard was definitively it was that if you have a goal that you've taken ownership of, in other words, I'm not going to be okay if this doesn't happen in the future, that you don't have 100% control of, and we don't have 100% control of much, it puts you into physiological stress as soon as you have that
Interesting.
goal. And if you're already in stress, it'll spike your stress. And
That's cool.
and then the next big question from that is, okay, for how long? For 30 minutes, for an hour, for as long as you have that goal, which could be years,
For
decades.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So they found in a study at Harvard exactly what you're talking about, that you can't do this and be at peace in the present. You can't do it.
Yes. And the way I've put it is the moment that you establish a goal, your body and mind immediately recognize you don't have it.
Yes, that's right.
You've immediately produced a gap between where you are now and where you claim you want to be.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
how do you have a design for improving the quality of your life or your business or any other strategic goal that you might have without triggering all of that stress response? In other words, the way I describe it is to have a positive expectancy, but not an expectation
Oh, I've
about,
never heard that.
yeah.
That's good.
So there's a sense of optimism, but it's also grounded in realism that says, I'm going to encounter obstacles. I
Yeah.
simply have to have a good enough plan to proceed into those obstacles. So when I encounter them or something even worse, I'll at least be prepared to continue the journey to where I'm going. So, how does your work help people maintain that positive expectancy without having an expectation?
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way. I love that. What I've tried to help people do and what I've taught is that I define a goal as something that you've kind of already taken ownership of. I've got to have that. I need that. I want that. And I'm not going to be completely okay if it doesn't happen. Um, and you need to shift that from that type of goal to a desire, a hope, a prayer that you're working toward. In fact, you'll probably work toward it harder than you would have before because you're going to be doing it without the stress. So it's something you're working toward, but the key is you have to give the end result up
Mhm.
from day one. I say the way I put it, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but give it up to God or give it up to love, the actual end result, because it's not completely under my control. And I may find that's not even what's best for me by the time I get there.
Right.
So, and then the second key is my focus needs to be the present in truth and love. And if you can do that, if you can have that as a desire, hope that you give up, even though you're working hard toward it, but you're working hard from a place of truth and love in the present,
Yeah.
man, you're going to soar.
That's wonderful. That's a really good distinction. I appreciate that. And one of the things, Alex, that I have noticed, especially when I was reading your works, kind of coming back to it again, I I reflected on some of the important goals that I am moving in the direction of, and I do say this or something even better, but I give up the
Yeah.
how it's going to happen. I just focus on what it is that I'm moving toward. And what I notice is from time to time, often when I least expect it, here comes this memory. And to the point that we've been talking about, it's unhappy, it's a little depressed, it's, gee, I should have done that differently. I'm really sorry that I did that at the time. And it occurred to me that what's happening is my neurophysiology is bringing me this on a platter saying, please, Paul, heal this. Because
Yeah.
if you're going there, this one is significant in terms of creating a block or a barrier towards it. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I think you're 1,000% right.
Okay.
I saw a recent headline for an article that was based on a new study, and I think you'll like this. Might have been Jordan Peterson, but I don't remember for sure. But anyway, the title of it's what got me. The title was Adverse Childhood Experiences Are the Reason.
Wow. Isn't
That
that
was it.
something?
And then in the article and talking about the study, they explain why they titled it that open-ended. That yeah, what we're saying is it almost doesn't matter what your problem is. This is where it comes from, and if you don't resolve it there, you're going to just be the definition of insanity the rest of your life.
That's so interesting because isn't it true that it's difficult to get through childhood without some adverse experience? I mean, name the area, whether it's education or family or society or friends or, something. There's always something that kicked the snot out of us as we were growing up. But that's interesting. So, how do you propose? And I know that you have kind of a measure to help identify some of these kinds of issues. What do we call it on the heart? What was the
It's the true you test.
That's it. That's it. So when those come up, what is the recommendation? So there I am. I'm driving in my car. I'm thinking about my goal, and all of a sudden this childhood memory comes up. What do I do at that moment to help make that shift?
Yeah, the first thing I do, and it happens to me all the time,
Sure.
first thing I do is say thank you.
Exactly. What a
And,
gift. It's like,
and I'm saying,
oh,
yeah, I'm saying thank you to my heart and unconscious and neurology. Thank you. Yeah, as you just said, you're telling me, hey, we're with you. Let's take care of this thing. So that's the first thing. And then I know I'm biased here. It's my thing, but then I do a code,
excellent.
and maybe it comes down from a 7 to a 6. Maybe it comes down from a 7 to a 3. No problem. I'll do another one, but I'll do it until that's below a 1.
So it's
And
about a 6-minute intervention that you're
it
talking
is.
about. And can you do that while you're driving in the car? You've got
Now,
one hand on the wheel and you
no,
got
I wouldn't do that. But what we've found is that you can keep both hands on the wheel and you can imagine you're doing it.
okay, yeah.
And it won't, for some people, it works better. For most people, it doesn't. For most people, it'll work well, but not as good as actually doing it. So then when you can take your hands off the wheel, do it. But I can just imagine it, and it'll usually be knocked out in 6 minutes.
Terrific. That's so wonderful. So you're what we're doing is we're essentially reinitializing the body's natural healing mechanisms when we clear this kind of stuff out of our cellular memory. And does it, in fact, clear? I mean, is there any way to know that it's cleared out of the cellular memory?
Well, I believe when you talk about cellular memory, the way they did at Southwestern with Dr. Eric Nestler and all that, you're talking predominantly about the unconscious as opposed to the conscious. In fact, Dr. Bruce Lipton says that about 99% of all your information about you is in your unconscious, not your conscious. So I believe largely when your feelings change. Your feelings to me are unconscious, emotions are conscious, and there's a big difference in the two. Emotions are supposed to be congruent with my physical and external circumstances. Feelings are congruent with my unconscious, which is where all those traumas and everything are.
My conclusions, whether they be faulty, my beliefs, those are in the feeling realm, right?
Yeah, so with the healing codes, it's not based at all on effort. You do the mechanical process and you feel different. And when you feel different, it means something in that memory that was shooting you the feeling before has shifted. And
Yes.
um, it's really a cool thing.
It really is. Well, and I want to say, and we were talking prior to starting the recording for this, that there are 32 double blind studies. Could you say what their conclusions were on double blind studies on the healing code and the effect on people, especially at a psychological, physiological level?
Yeah, yeah. And this is multiple universities published in peer-reviewed journals in the US, in Europe, in Asia. Um, and an important part of this, for me at least, is there's never been a double-blind study that found it did not work significantly.
Mm,
And that's huge to me. All 30, there've been 32 done, all 32 found it to work significantly, but the studies were looking at different issues, some on blood pressure, some on blood sugar, some on anxiety or depression, some on relationships, some on gender issues. I mean, it's 112 different issues they studied in those 32
mm.
double-blind studies and found every one of them to be significantly benefited from doing this silly little 6 minute. What in the world could that ever do? Well, it turns out a good bit.
That's so great.
So, yeah, it's 112 life issues from cancer issues. Now, I'm not talking about tumors going away. They haven't studied that. But what they did study is people who have cancer and are afraid and in anxiety and all this sort of stuff. It would shift to where now they're positive in their thinking and feeling, even though they have the cancer. And do you think that benefits the cancer or make? Yeah, it absolutely does. So that's been one of the really dropped out of the sky into my lap things of the healing codes. There's those 32 double-blind studies.
Well, I'm so thrilled for you. I think it's so good because if humanity is going to get it and really benefit from it, they've got to overcome their skepticism about
Right.
something, this novel, this easy, it's free to be able to use it. You've got it with you all the time. It's just brilliant. So thank you so much for the time that you've shared with us. And if we could finish with a simple practice that you might encourage people to do just to up level their lives on a daily basis, what would you say? What would you recommend?
Well, I'll give you an obvious one and a sort of one that might feel kind of weird to some people. I would do the 6 minute code, just bridge Adam's apple jaws temples at least once a day, and then as needed. The second one, and you've got to know before I say this, I'm not at all talking religion. I tend to run from religion. It's usually about power, control, and money. I love spirituality and try to live a spiritual life. But the other one is prayer.
Nice.
And Paul, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who I said, okay, here's your homework until next week. Next time that anxiety's on your back, I just want you to go out and take a walk and pray until the anxiety's better.
Isn't that
And
gorgeous?
and I'm all and literally people are not going to believe this. I'm not sure I've ever had anyone come back and say that didn't work.
That's so good. And if you haven't read Dr. Larry Dossey's work on the
Oh
power of
gosh,
prayer, I
I
mean,
love
yeah,
him.
my father-in-law was a Methodist minister, and he went in for heart surgery, and the whole medical staff said, "Oh, we're so glad to have you. You know, anybody who has a prayer life is going to do way better on the operating table than someone who doesn't, who
And
goes in with fear and worry, right?"
yeah, and in his Reinventing Medicine book,
Yeah.
he gives literal double-blind studies on prayer that'll
Yes.
just blow your mind.
Yes. Well, you're the power of what came through as a result of your fervent and heartfelt prayer is a blessing to all of us. So thank you, Alex. Great to be with you again. Hope to see you again soon.
I've got to take 1 second.
Oh, yes, please.
I'm a big fan. Was a big fan, still am of your photo reading, but I love your paraliminals. Thank you for the work you're doing and keep doing it because we need it. And it was an honor to be with you, Paul.
Thanks so much, Alex. Peace and blessings. Bye for now.
Blessings to you. Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Alex Loyd. To connect with Dr. Loyd, visit his website at thehealingcodes.com. Now let's explore which paraliminals you can use to reinforce and accelerate the deep inner work that Alex and I discussed. Welcome. This is the follow-up to my conversation with Dr. Alex Loyd as we were exploring his work in healing codes. Really enjoyed the conversation with him. The fact that I met him so many years ago and he has stayed with it and stayed on it. And the results of his work have really gotten traction over the last decade or so. So much more important science has been coming out to validate these approaches and how powerful they can be and how simple the interventions can be as well. So very exciting conversation. I absolutely adored my time with them. And in thinking about how you could use paraliminal technology to facilitate your use of any of this kind of information, I came up with 5 different areas that in a way we touched on during our conversation. The first is about releasing emotional stress and energetic blockages. The second is healing limiting memories and identity patterns, or back to that idea of cellular memory. The third is about clearing blocks to success, self-worth, and fulfillment in life. The fourth is creating lasting personal change and habit rewiring. And the final area is what I would call an energetic reset and inner alignment. So there are paraliminals that go with each of these 5 areas. Let's get into it. The first area, releasing emotional stress and energetic blockages. The go-to is the paraliminal called letting go, where when a memory comes up, an emotion arrives or an image arrives, something comes up, as I described, as a gift from my unconscious mind to be dealt with. The letting go paraliminal is so wonderful because what it does is it welcomes it, says, yeah, come here, let me explore you. I'm not going to resist you. And Could I let it go? Would I let it go? When? And so with Hale Dwoskin Sedona method, it's a very powerful releasing technology. Or the second paraliminal for this area would be deep relaxation, because essentially what you're doing is going into a yogic posture like shavasana or the corpse pose. So there's no physical stress or strain in your body. And then you become very present to that healing energy that's here, it's within us, and you allow it to do its work. It's one of the longest of all paraliminal titles in terms of the duration to listen to it. Many people listen to it as a way of preparing for sleep at night because they let go of so much that may have emerged during the day, and it prepares them for a much better, more restful sleep at night. The second area is around healing limiting memories and identity patterns, because very often we develop an identity based on many of the faulty conclusions that we arrive at as a result of difficult situations that occurred to us as we're growing up. So, for example, a simple one is I do badly in a math class and I say, well, I'm just no good at math, right? That becomes an identity pattern. And it's a limiting memory. It was difficult at the time. And so how do I start letting go of that, which probably is at a deeper cellular level that it's occurring? So the first paraliminal that can facilitate in this is called New History Generator, where we're actually going through your history from the very earliest memories till now, and then taking from there a trajectory on into the future. And so each of the issues or memories that show up for you during that process is there for you to see that you have many other choices, interpretations, possibilities for looking at it, holding that, or releasing it. It's really a lovely, deep inner work protocol that does tremendous things for people. And the second paraliminal in this area is called Finding Yourself. So it's the inverse of New History. In the New History Generator, we start at our early history and we go forward till now, and then on into the future. In Finding Yourself, we start with now and we go back through our history all the way to back in the womb. So seeing the trajectory of our lives in reverse is a powerful way of not only recognizing these patterns, but also blessing, healing, and releasing those that don't really serve, and establishes a very different relationship with yourself at an identity level. Very powerful process to go through. Okay, the third area is in clearing blocks to success, self-worth, and fulfillment. The first one, probably most relevant to the dialogue that Dr. Loyd and I had, was the idea of anxiety-free, releasing anxieties about the future. Anxiety is not something that you can feel as a now experience. Right now, you're fine. It's the anticipation of an uncertain future that creates a sense of anxiety. Will I be resourced enough? Will I be up to the task? And so on. And very often, if we have an identity that we're not worthy, that needs to be rewritten. We need to have a different narrative about that. And so anxiety-free really helps to develop that recognition of self-reliance and access to resources that are going to help you get to where you want to go. The second paraliminal in this area is the self-esteem supercharger. The idea behind this, it's a powerful one. And I do recommend, if you have the Mind Tracks app, to also listen to the coaching session on self-esteem supercharger. But self-esteem is different than self-image. Self-imaging is a comparison of you to another, but self-esteem is your relationship with yourself. It's self-love in essence. It's loving yourself exactly as you are right now and actually increasing that positive sense of compassion toward yourself as you step into the world to live a fulfilling life. Very powerful paraliminal. The fourth area is creating lasting personal change and habit rewiring. So the first one that comes to mind for me in this is break the habit, because not only do we recognize unproductive, unsupportive habits that aren't serving and shifting those, but then we can also install new powerful habits that will take us on into the future to create the life we desire to create. So break the habit is a very strong paraliminal, has 2 sessions to it. Excellent for lasting personal change. And the next paraliminal in this domain would be new action generator. So that capacity to see, if I'm going to get different results in the future, I'm going to have to engage with life differently. Because if I just do the same old, I'm going to get the same old. So that's new action generator puts the capacity to take new actions on what matters most to you and implement them, step into it. And this is where we build competence to accomplish those things that are important to us. As you may have heard me say before, it's better to have self-competence than self-confidence. Confidence that you have the ability to learn, that's great. But competence is what's really needed to be able to address the challenges that we're naturally going to face going forward in life. Final area is this idea of an energetic reset and an interior alignment, inner alignment. I believe that every paraliminal listening session gives you the opportunity for this. That's why I say, when you know you're going to sit back and listen to a paraliminal, even if you don't have a particular goal, you're just going to lay back and take a nap, fine. Before you start and hit that play button, really important that you establish an intention. And even if it's, hey, I'm going to take a nap for the next 20 minutes, and while I'm napping, here are the positive things that are going to occur. That's where you put in, I'm going to have this interior alignment. I'm going to have this energetic reset that will make the rest of my day go great, etc. So the first paraliminal in this arena is focus and concentration. And this is where the mind becomes a power, a thought becomes a power in and of itself, because the mind focus then can accomplish anything that it is set upon. Focus and concentration really allows that to occur. Plus, it gives us much more pleasure in everything that we do on a daily basis. The second paraliminal in this area is called belief. And in the belief paraliminal, similar to the break the habit paraliminal, we rewrite negative beliefs that may be in place, and we write in positive beliefs that would be more life enhancing and self-supportive. So it has 2 sessions to it. Very powerful, a very complete self-improvement program in a single audio session. So those are the 5 areas. Those are the paraliminals that I recommend. Have a wonderful time putting into practice these ideas to make a difference in your life today. Thanks for being with me. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can easily use the Paraliminal audio sessions in the MindTracks app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, that is, your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and propel you toward the success you want. Go to mindtracks.com/go. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your life today. Be sure to come back for more episodes of the Mind Tracks podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. And if you found value in this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Your support helps us keep the momentum of transformation going. Thank you again for being here on our Mind Tracks podcast.